Hello and welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the Pisces super new moon, which occurs across the 19th or the 20th of February, depending on where you're located, at 1 degrees and 22 minutes Pisces. This is a particularly special Pisces new moon because it is conjunct, even though it's disassociate with Saturn. So Saturn's still in the sign of Aquarius, it's going to join Pisces on the 7th of March, but it is close enough to be really significant. Now, if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me once more. It's great to have you with me. If you're new to my channel, this is very much a community. Please comment. I do interact with each one, share your experiences, and like and subscribe. First of all, I want to share with you how I'm going to structure the video. So first up, I will share the key dates and times of all the major cities in the world. Then I'm going to outline what a Pisces new moon gives us an opportunity to embrace and work with. But because of that Saturnian presence, I will then thread this into the solar chart so we can look at it collectively and see the sun and the moon in the 12th house. We start in the Zodiac at 0 degrees, Aries, on the vernal point, but then also the event ingress chart based on Placidus and Universal Central Time. So those two charts help us to reflect on this, first of all collectively, but then in terms of how it really is happening in terms of more serious astrology. And finally, I'll go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your sun or your ascendant. Now, if you would like to learn a lot more about astrology and what makes you tick, if you do give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can give you your life roadmap report, which can help you to understand some of the patterns that have been repeating. Perhaps some of these have been not necessarily easy patterns, but you can get a more intimate understanding of what these are, but also grasp the opportunities more firmly. In my special package, you can also get your 12-month personal forecast, and it's 30% off for all of this. Please see the link below for more. So, on the screen now, you can see exactly where this event is occurring around the world. In Los Angeles, it is on the 19th of February. All the other big cities, it is the 20th. Now, what does a Pisces new moon give us the opportunity to work with? Well, let's just think about the archetypes of the sign of Pisces. We have 2 rulers. Jupiter, the traditional ruler, is very much about higher knowledge and expansion, but also about faith. Neptune, the co-regent, is very much to do with the compassionate, ephemeral energies of Pisces. This is where we can tune into our senses. It's not necessarily what we can physically see, it's more what we can feel. This is the 12th zodiac sign, so it's a culmination sign of the process of the sun making its way through each of the previous 11 signs. So Pisces people can said to have quite a few different traits, but I think it can be a point of reflection for all of us before the sun moves on the vernal equinox each year into the sign of Aries, and the whole astrological journey begins again. So we can use this new moon as an opportunity to think about the things that have gone on over the last 12 months, to reflect. We may feel nostalgic, we may feel quite in the mode to reminisce. It's a wonderful opportunity to embrace our imagination, our artistry, our creativity, our dreams, but also to set our intentions in terms of manifestation, which is obviously an important buzzword that is very much used these days. But if we can embrace the non-physical, we're also embracing our subconscious. And that can be some of the things that we find awkward. For example, fears, anxieties. And perhaps sometimes we go against our instincts because our brain tells us something else. So I feel rejuvenation can come from this particular new moon if we give ourselves permission to really embrace the spiritual, emotional and psychological elements of our situation. Now, this particular Pisces new moon has, like I say, Saturn very close by, but in the sign of Aquarius, which of course it is the co-ruler of. I think this brings a more censorious and more restricting energies to this particular new moon. And it also says if we ignore our hunches, ignore that non-physical realm, we could encounter some limitations. So if we are someone who finds it a little bit difficult to see outside the material or the physical plane, Saturn's asking us to work at it. But it's not just asking us to work at it on this particular event, because Saturn moves into Pisces for close to 2.5 years in its first phase on the 7th of March. So really quite close to this event. So this supermoon, which is where the moon's very close to the Earth, has a very magnifying influence in terms of our feelings. And Saturn is saying if we don't take those feelings seriously, we're going to potentially feel weary and rather limited. But Saturn does provide opportunities. It's not all the bad guy, where we show application and persistence and we work at things. And this is the opportunity for all of us over this next couple of years to bring into our everyday world a much more sensitive and compassionate vibe. That's the big opportunity that Saturn brings us on this event over the next month, but also over the next 2.5 years. Now on the screen now, I'm sharing with you the solar event chart. So this is how we're relating to this event collectively, because we see the Zodiac beginning with Aries at point 0 on the vernal point, and it goes right round to the end of 29 degrees, 29 and 59 seconds in Pisces on that anaretic point, and that, strangely, on this event is exactly where Venus is. So that's an interesting one. But Venus does actually forge a beautiful link with Pluto on this particular event. So it suggests that if we listen to our instincts around money, but also professional relationships, Pluto just still in the sign of Capricorn, that's going to be a good thing. Also, the things we do behind the scenes is going to be important. We should listen to our hunches around our work. You know, if we're offered a position which seems very, very exciting, let's be aware of how that's going to feel, rather than just being guided by the status or the money and so forth. But if we look at that gathering of energy, it's not just the sun and the moon, it's also Neptune, ironically, the co-ruler of Pisces, all in the 12th solar house. But you can see that alongside Saturn is the technical ascendant and also the part of fortune. Now I'll share that ascendant on the ingress Placidus wheel next, but essentially I feel that just shows how important Saturn is to this event. We are going to feel a dipping down of physical vitality, I feel, because the first house is our body and our immediate energy, unless we stay very sensitive to our needs. So we do have that sextile between Venus and Pluto, which is absolutely lovely. We have the conjunction with Saturn, the ascendant, and the part of fortune, which suggests we need to balance our individuality, Aquarius, with our emotional and spiritual reality, Pisces. But Mercury is also in Aquarius, forging a terrific link with Mars. Now that suggests that there can still be lots of buzzy communication going on. There's a mutual receptiveness there, because obviously Mercury is exalted in Aquarius. It also governs the second decan, and at 12 degrees it's in that location. But of course it also is the ruling planet of the sign of Gemini. But you can see down in house 3 that Mars is very close to the IC. So this is the feeling point of the chart. This is very much where we gain shelter. So that's a restless combination. So the need to reform the way we live at home is going to be part of this process. But we do have Uranus in a much more challenging right angle with Mercury. So with Mercury in house 11, the collective, how we all relate to things in a networked way, our friendships, our alliances, that's in a tense square with Uranus, suggesting that the financial situation that we've all been dealing with, particularly since that total lunar eclipse of the 8th of November, well, that is really feeding into this period of time that we're still in. So a lot of restless energy, and potentially I feel industrial unrest is still washing around. Because Pisces is very much about healing, it could be that we are going to see, or continue to see, people who work providing those services, letting people know how dissatisfied they are, not just by the fact that their wages may not have been increased over the years, but the lack of validation and appreciation that they feel that government and society has for all the hard work and unstinted dedication they showed, not just through COVID, but particularly at COVID. It's all very well going onto the pavement to clap the carers and the health workers. We have to genuinely appreciate them, and that comes from the top down, from government. Now, in terms of the event chart there, you can see the ascendant at 28 degrees 56 in Aquarius, and that is conjunct Saturn and the path of fortune. So I think that can be quite limiting, but there are opportunities to combine our individuality with the way we work with our feeling senses. And you can see that on this particular ingress chart, it looks actually very similar to the solar chart, because the ascendant is so late in Aquarius, it's almost reflecting the solar chart. There are a few little changes there. Mercury, for example, moves into the 12th house. It can be to do with secrets, and Uranus remains in the second house. We still have Mars in the 3rd house, but Mercury into the 12th. So a 12th, 3rd house energy can see issues that have been hidden come into the open. And of course, Pisces energy can be to do in some ways with secret enemies in traditional astrology, the 12th house, things that are maybe gossiped or commented on in private, clandestine developments. All these kind of things are still bubbling away. But Venus in Pisces is in the 1st house, forging a link with Pluto in the 12th. That's really interesting, because Pluto in the 12th house, very much about what can be hidden, the underworld and secrets. But I feel as an overall event, these two charts just give us a flavour of what we can expect. And there is an opportunity here to work on the things that in modern society are coming more into a focus more and more, which is good, but it's very much to do with mental and emotional health. Any kind of healing, it doesn't necessarily have to be healing using medicines. It can be healing, approaching things by healing our thinking and healing our psychological relationship to situations. And that's what Saturn's going to ask us to work at over the next couple of years. Now, please stay with me for your Sun or Ascendant Zodiac forecast for the next month. So, Aries, your ruler Mars is free of that retrograde that it was going through to the 12th of January, but it doesn't come out of its post-retrograde shadow until the 15th of March. So you could still be feeling a little bit sluggish, but the link with Mercury here suggests that there could be some kind of connection with someone, a friend, over the next month. But I also feel that when it comes to your friendships, this can be a time when you are going to be thinking very carefully about who you trust and who you can rely upon. And this is going to be something that goes on over the next couple of years. So there could be some rinsing out of certain associations and interests and people that no longer serve your greater good. Now, because there is a spectacular solar eclipse in your sign on the 20th of April this year, which is going to excitingly be linking with Jupiter but squaring with Pluto, that's really going to galvanize you with some new strands. But because Saturn is moving into your 12th house, some things that you've been very passionate about in the past could make way, and you're going to start seeing the start of that process now. Taurus. For you, the Pisces new moon is a time to think about your friendships, but I think it can also be about your associations professionally. Because Saturn is right at the top of your situation in your 10th solar house, he has been pushing you over the last couple of years to take a lot of extra responsibility. But if work has become the total dominant feature of your existence, it could be that other parts of your existence have been withering on the vine, and that could be your interactions with others, the quality of your social life, obviously affected by COVID for many people. So I really feel that this particular new moon is asking you to think about whether your professional situation has become too dominant in your overall worldly structure. Now, it may not at all. It may be quite the reverse. It may be that actually you've been putting up with someone's oppressive behaviour, or perhaps your work has been very tiring and limiting for you. And this new moon is asking you to refresh and find new ways to bring hobbies and interests and new networks of people into your situation. Gemini. Having Mars and Mercury, your ruler, in such a brilliant alliance on this event is absolutely fantastic for you. I feel over the last couple of years, although Saturn has been pushing you to widen your horizons in some way, there's obviously a contradiction in terms, because Saturn can be about limitation, the 9th house about expansion, but you may have expanded some elements of your situation, but probably with a lot of hard work and application. But I think it's the 8th house of your situation and the 12th house of your situation that have also been very powerful. Obviously, Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, Uranus in your 12th house. So that continues, the fact that Uranus is squaring up with your ruler on this event, and Mercury in the part of your situation that could see you wanting to travel, and Uranus in the 12th house. Just be conscious that if you are feeling very restless, and it's possible, perhaps it's because you are feeling in some way unfulfilled around your professional situation. Also, any legal or contractual issues will need handling with care. But if you're someone that feels there's a lot more to come from you professionally, I think Saturn cresting on the edge of the sign of Pisces is going to push you to think about some retraining or reskilling, or adding more knowledge to your existing portfolio of talent. So Cancer, for you, Pisces is a water sign like yours, so there is a triplicity match-up there. You could find your imagination really boosted when it comes to in some way changing your situation or making it more varied or stimulating. So for example, traveling to places that you can immerse yourself in. So if you could book a vacation or a holiday during the next month, it's probably something that can be very healing. But also, I feel that this 9th house energy does push you a little bit to think about some of your philosophies. Are some of your truths and realities due some kind of upgrade. Of course, Saturn has been making its way through your sector of shared resources and where you're very invested in your connections to others. And I feel that Saturn, therefore, could be informing your desire to change up your world and bring more variety to bear if there isn't the financial resources to do that, which, of course, would be entirely understandable. Perhaps Uranus, in that very individualistic 11th house, clashing with Mercury, can in some ways give you a push to try to work hard at reimagining your situation with some fresh thinking. But it could also be that someone's going to confront you that they feel that some of your thinking may have become a little bit set, and therefore there could be a challenge to you. But it doesn't necessarily have to be deeply uncomfortable. With Venus and Pluto in such a lovely alliance, there could be someone who comes in now that you see as some kind of teacher, spirit guide, someone with a higher knowledge as you see it that can be really valuable to you. Now, Leo, for you, the gathering of energy in Pisces is very much about your shared resources. Now, Neptune has been creating a degree of confusion there, I feel, over the years, since 2012. And of course, Saturn's been moving its way through your sector of close interactions and where you've had to compete or set your boundaries, perhaps even a personal relationship. If a personal relationship is not working out for you, I feel that the 8th house energy of this new moon is asking you to really think about the transitions that may need to take place. And part of it could be the way that you interact with the world at large, which is coming through the North Node and Uranus being challenged by Mercury. So although you can talk about situations and perhaps have a frank debate, it could be rather tense if you feel that someone's being antagonistic towards you or not necessarily seeing things the same as you. With the IC, the most sensitive point in the scope, in a combination with Mars, I also feel that there could be some sensitivities around certain friendships. So if you feel that someone's a bit possessive or clinging or cloying or assumes of your time, that could be something you may want to liberate yourself from over the next 4 weeks. Now that brings us to Virgo. So Virgo, this gathering of energy, this new moon is in your sector of relating. But you have that passion for things working properly, for being well structured, ordered, efficient. But is that in some way pulverizing the passion around a relationship situation? Or if you're single, are you being a bit too picky? Those are the questions you need to ask yourself. This can be a relaunch for your relationship hopes, but with Saturn so close to the Sun and the Moon, if you're letting your perfectionism get in the way of opportunity, it could be that you're seeing things rather too narrowly. So try to see the big picture. None of us is perfect. The only thing that is, and we can be sure of, is perfectly flawed, is life. So a good opportunity to relax a little bit in terms of your interactions and just see how things flow. That link between Pluto and Venus is gorgeous. If you did meet the right person now, it could be a relationship that could endure for a very long time. But nervous tension with Mercury and Uranus in a 6th, 9th house right angle, I think that is possible. So if a relationship matter isn't going great for you, you may be finding it difficult to let go of any excess adrenaline, and you may need to try to exercise a little bit more to deal with any challenges. And it could be just in, relationships with colleagues as much as personal ties. Now Libra, for you, this energy in the sign of Pisces is very much about the physical realm, ironically, because it's the 6th house. But because Mars is in the part of your horoscope that's to do with expansion and adventure, it's important that you're just conscious that if you do try to push out and try and almost get very fit very quickly, for example, that wouldn't necessarily be such a good thing to do. So obviously Saturn hasn't necessarily been easy in your 5th house, but it's preparing you to get more physically disciplined. So whether that is about the amount of calorific goodies you consume, the amount of exercise you get, getting a bit more organised. Libra people, myself included, when we're not working, can be very laid back, perhaps lack a little bit of spark. Well, Saturn's saying try to shape the physical world in a more systematic way. But equally, if you have been helping people to the nth degree through the auspices of Neptune over the last couple of years, it's important to set some boundaries, because I think boundaries is what the lesson of Pluto has been a lot about, certainly around your emotional boundaries. Maybe other people have not had so much respect for your feelings. Jupiter strengthening your 7th house at the moment is really going to help, as is that solar eclipse on the 20th of April. But I feel that this is a process you need to start with yourself, reforming the basics in your situation, but it could see you look for a different job over the next couple of years. This brings us to Scorpio. Now obviously the sign of Pisces is your 5th solar house, which is very much about showcasing your talents, your passions, your joys, enjoying life's pleasures, anything to do with romance, creativity. And because of the wateriness of Pisces, indulging in those parts of your nature can come really naturally, as long as you're not letting any personal inhibitions get in the way. Because Saturn has probably, over the last couple of years, seen quite a lot of pressures around your personal time. Perhaps it's looking after an elderly parent, young kids. Perhaps you've had some kind of repairs or renewals to do to a property that you've lived in. Perhaps you've had to move. Perhaps there's been difficulties around a housing situation. But essentially this new moon is the first blush of a new spring for you, of more joyfulness. But with Saturn moving into Pisces, you are going to have to work very hard at getting in touch with those opportunities. Sagittarius, the new moon in the 4th house could see some great news in terms of your family life, a home situation. It may be that there is going to be some kind of a gathering or reunion or celebration which can prove to be joyful. But Saturn's really been pushing you over the last couple of years to become much more mindful of how you say things. The 3rd house is when we say things with not necessarily a lot of pre-thought. It's just a quick reaction, because it's very Gemini-like. And Saturn has probably seen some pushback. You know, perhaps it's been neighbours, perhaps it's been siblings who've not necessarily immediately responded to your message, or perhaps they felt your message was a bit harsh. So all this much more emotional energy is also encouraging you to work with something that Neptune has been prompting in your situation since 212, which is considering that you're an emotional being rather than just a philosophical being, or an adventurous being, or a freedom-loving being, or someone who has a vast bank of knowledge being, all which you're very strong on. So you are being asked to get more in touch with the more nurturing and more gentle and security enabling elements of your life. Capricorn, for you, the new moon in your 3rd house is very much about your ideas. But over the last couple of years, you probably have felt the pinch a little bit around either your self-worth, your personal income, or both. So Saturn preparing to go into your 3rd house is really going to ask you to scrutinize some of your ideas and the way you express them. But this particular new moon, particularly with Pluto in your sign, linking so magnificently with Venus, does give you the opportunity to wax lyrical. But if you are someone who uses any kind of digital media in order to express yourself, so whether you're an installation artist, or you're a writer, or you're a teacher or a trainer, or you enjoy graphics, or you're in web design, or photography, that's very much an area that Pisces enhances, or you love music, your voice and getting your voice heard is going to become much more important to you from here on in. Aquarius. Well, Saturn is preparing to say goodbye, and it may be a case of good riddance. But remember, the two signs that can deal with Saturn the best are Capricorn and Aquarius, because it is the ruler of those signs. Obviously, it's solely the domiciled ruler of Capricorn, and it's the co-regent of Aquarius. But I feel that you are being asked to think about your self-worth, money in a physical sense, but Pisces can also be a very dissipating influence, so things that you thought were very solid could start to make way, and that may mean reimagining and reworking certain elements of your income, and Saturn's asking you to make the most of your individual talents, but perhaps framed in a more imaginative way. So I think there can be some fluidity around your financial situation at the moment, which may feel a little bit scary, which would be entirely understandable. Also, Mercury in your sign squaring up with Uranus suggests quite a lot of tension as well. But we still have Mercury in a great link with Mars. So your individuality and the way you innovate gives you a clue of how you can work forwards, not just over the next month, but future forwards too. And that means really embracing the more innovative spirit of your sign, the more stable, fixed energy that comes from Saturn, which is continuity, an appreciation of regularity in your life. That may need to make way. This may be the time to embrace the more Uranian energies of change. And change isn't always easy. So Pisces, the second solar house, and I feel that Neptune has probably made you enormously generous to people and compassionate since 2012, but you're being asked to look after your resources very much more carefully from here on in. Now Pisces, obviously the new moon in your sign, this super new moon, is a super opportunity to recast your identity in some kind of dynamic way. Jupiter's in your second house, which is a pretty good place for it to be. It's also forging a great link with Mercury. So Mercury in your 12th house suggests that things you've been working on behind the scenes can still render some extra revenue, but this is a great time to start new plans or to inject ongoing strands with greater enthusiasm and desire. But Saturn just being tucked up behind the position of the Sun and the Moon is interesting, because if you've got any self-doubt or any lack of self-worth or fear around trying to get something off the ground, that passivity that can be part of your nature when you're not on good form can dominate, and that's something you need to just be conscious of. But try to take the energy of the Sun, of Neptune and Venus in your sign along with the Moon, and try to really go for whatever feels meaningful at this time. And if there are certain elements of you or your situation which you feel are not quite so solid, just acknowledge them and still try to make your way forwards. Saturn moving into your sign is going to clear away a lot of peripheral things which are not really essential. It's asking you to strip things down to what's really important to you. So as you start this new epoch of Saturn entering your sign on March the 7th, and with this new moon, you have to be jolly realistic about what's really important, but also be conscious of how you may structure resistance to new opportunities by always, in a way, having a pre-prepared answer, even if you're having a discussion with yourself about why you can't do something. If you see that kind of limiting thinking or behaviour going on inside of you, try to stop yourself. This is the time to take a big step into a fantastic, bright and effervescent new future for you. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Please do comment, like or subscribe. Take care and goodbye for now.